Ampol, stock of the day today, says it's on track to deliver record full-year earnings with Australian quarterly sales growing 20% and selling 3.6 billion litres of fuel. It's the highest level since the start of the pandemic. Tight global oil supply, shrinking refining capacity have powered demand for fuel, bolstering prices of refined products in recent months. The company's third quarter litre refiner margin remained above historical levels, $15.46 a barrel. Its convenience retail and Z Energy performed well in the third quarter. What happened to the share price? Down 11% on the day.
And a half.
What the hell is going on, Rudy? You know, what more can Ampol do? Meeting guidance, great margins, and then pow, down 11%. What are you people doing it?
I have a suspicion that it's in the forward-looking element, I think. I haven't had the time. I traveled to the studio. I haven't had the time to have a look at the statement today. But my suspicion is, previously there were some question marks about the sustainability of these high margins.
Yep.
So I have a suspicion that that's probably one of the elements that management might have guided towards, like, we don't think these margins are sustainable. Margins are, investors tend to underestimate it, but margins are incredibly important. They basically decide what your profitability is for the year ahead. It's not just the top line, right? So I don't know the detail, but I have a suspicion that is the reason why.
What do you think of Ampol? Because when they talk about margins and record margins, you know, some people would use a really unkind term like they're gouging us at the pump.
And they are. We know that. that is probably the problem, because obviously the suspicion is always that they can do it for a while, but there will always be a payback for that at some stage. You would assume.
Okay.
And there is a lot of skepticism about the consumer resilience.
So what would do you like Ampol? You know, that's a big thump down.
Yes, I know. It's not my type of company, but I can see the attraction that it's all else being equal. It does pay you a good dividend. And has over the years. It's not a spectacular performer at any stage, and it is to a very large extent dependent on what basically the margin is that comes from Singapore.
Right.
I'm assuming that, not for me, but I'm assuming if you own it, you would keep it here because the dividend is still there.
Okay, so I hold. No?
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think I speculate that the reason the share price dropped so much today is the sellers outnumbered the buyers, and maybe it's people getting out of the stock. You know, so there's logically there's some logic in that.
Because it's not a shorted stock much, is it? So there wasn't any short covering to push it up.
I don't know, really might know.
I haven't looked, but there is some shorting in there, but I'm not so sure whether that's of influence today.
See, the problem is, if you look at the history of Ampol, it's been a very mediocre performance.
Yeah, right.
That's the problem. So it's got a history of not looking good very often. Right. And then they went from a loss of 14 cents a share in 2020. So it dropped for 3 years, from 18 down to 20 negative earnings growth.
That's because you went in lockdowns.
Yeah, but petrol, true. Yeah. Okay. We'll give them a break, give them a pass. And then it's bounced back to like a record now that's way higher than they've had in the last decade. So that's a one-off at the moment.
Right.
So their net margin is 2.7%. Their profit margin, Rudi was talking about. It's a very low margin business, and it's a volume business. Now, it's not going away anytime soon, unless you want to bring in an electric argument. Yeah. But I think that's it's there, but it's a factor. We're showing it returning a negative 4% a year based on our methodologies, going forward. Now, that hasn't taken in that 11% increase, so that might drop a little bit, but it'll still be negative.
Right.
Because we work on 6 years. We don't, one good year does not mean that's now the new norm.
Yep.
So we wouldn't look at it.
Okay. But you saw it while you were talking. They showed the chart on television, and it's gone sideways.
Yeah.
It moves every day.
It's paying 4.8% yield.
It's a long term.
To Rudi's.
It's a long term,
which is not bad.
Sideways move.
Okay.
But I agree with that. If you have it, if you got it already, maybe you keep it.
So you own it for the dividends.
Okay.